right, everybody, welcome back to Body Slam the Competition. We got a great week of wrestling to discuss and talk with you. A lot of stuff has happened. A couple of big things have come up, a couple of expected things, and even a couple of unexpected things, in my eyes, anyways. This week, Mike and Chuck will not be on the show with us for two totally different reasons, but we do have Ray with us here again this week from Jersey. Ray, thanks for coming on with us.
Hey, Chris, how's it going, man?
I got to stop these accents. I've got no Jersey accent. I mean, I need to give it up, like Chuck said. I need to quit. I'm just going to stop while I'm ahead, man.
Not everybody can handle an accent.
I know. I ain't got no accent. I don't know about what they're talking about, but
we'll
just leave
it
at that.
An accent.
So, what you think about this week? We had a lot of big stuff going on, man.
Yeah, like you said, there was a lot of expected stuff. In terms of story related, in terms of where it's going for, Road to WrestleMania. But there were definitely some unexpected stuff, some shockers, and some stuff to keep an eye on.
Well, we'll start right off the bat. I guess first of the week was Raw, since it was Monday night anyway. We'll jump right into that. Show opens up and Chris Jericho comes out, start the show off, talking his talk and everything, put this promo out there. Of course, as expected, Kevin Owens would show up to crash the promo. We all kind of expected that, I do believe. And go on to tell him that he never was really his friend. He just needed somebody who was a veteran status, to someone who's been there before, who could kind of take him to where he needed to get to. And he was going to dump them just like he did Sami Zayn, who was once his friend as well. And you see what he did to him.
Right.
I'm not sure if a lot of people kind of expected what happened in the outcome, though, because it's been rumored online, but it wasn't really set in stone or anything. Yes, they backed Kevin Owens for that title, but we didn't see anything with Kevin Owens doing any kind of Triple H's bidding. Well, suddenly, when him and Jericho start to brawl up there in the ring, who but Samoa Joe would come out there and help Kevin Owens as they start beating down Jericho.
Well, it's been a lot of speculation in the internet world that, Triple H is trying to form his new, so to speak, his new corporation, his new version of Evolution. And what two talents, I mean, I'm not sure who would agree or who wouldn't, but do you try to fill at least two of those slots, but granted, they're two veteran talents. But a guy like Kevin Owens and a guy like Samoa Joe.
Could you see Finn Balor coming back and joining that group?
No, not at all. I don't see him leading into that group. If anything, with Finn Balor coming back, if any group happens, I see a revamped club situation, almost like what they try to do with AJ Styles, being as Finn Balor was the original leader of the Bullet Club.
If I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to look it up here just to see, but if I'm not mistaken, I think I've seen an elite figure talk of an elite figure Balor Club come out of Finn Balor. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that for sure or not. It's Finn Balor in a black jacket, I believe, with a little bit of a rough, unshaven look and everything, and they talk about him being one of the new elite characters. If that's the case, that usually leads up to something happening within wrestling. They're not just going to make the character for the sake of making it usually. There's usually something more along with the storyline-wise. So that would definitely lead you to believe that with the tag team there, Anderson and Gallows still being there, and Balor coming back, they could very well easily form the Balor Club. And there's also talk of another Bullet Club member moving to WWE, but they're talking about him going to NXT first, though. And I don't know if he'll go to Raw or not. But we'll get to that a little bit in a while, though.
Right, we'll talk about that. I think I have an idea of who you're talking about, and
that
falls into a big situation that happened this past weekend in Vegas.
Exactly. So I don't know how that's going to work out for sure. If the rumors are true and it's working out to be that, if that's the case enough, that'll be interesting to follow that and find out for sure. But I'm just wondering, they got two people already, in Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe. He's not going to stop there. He's going to at least get one more primetime character there to have. I
wouldn't say one more. I would say two more, and it's a spot that needs to be filled as a tag team slot. And what comes after WrestleMania, but NXT call-ups, and I'm thinking the Revival.
Well, I think it depends on what Triple H wants to do and how far he wants to take it. Like, how much on-camera time does he want in the ring anymore? If he doesn't want to be in ring, at least, but maybe on camera, I could still see him, yes, doing 2 more people and, like you said, maybe a tag team. If he wants to be a part of it, though, and he wants to be in ring again, then I'm looking at just 1 more at that point. The Revival wouldn't be a bad group to throw together in there if you're looking for a tag team to throw in. Because look, when he had Degeneration X, it's not like Road Dogg and Jesse James were the most elite tag team in the WWE. But they did hold their own, and they did the job, and they had the belts for a while. So, I mean, I could definitely see the Revival, coming in and doing that same thing, filling that same role.
Right, and if Triple H really isn't looking for that on-screen character, so to speak, and he's looking more to play a background role, being as who else is he close to but Ric Flair, essentially this would be more or less of a second coming, so to speak, of a revamp, more or less a reincarnation of the Four Horsemen.
Right.
You would have Triple H as your J.J. Dillon, and you would have, your Revival as your Arn and Tully Blanchard, and then you would have Triple H Samoa Joe as your, Barry Windham and Ric Flair. More or less.
Right.
And
then just to
follow
follow
up, see them going with it.
Just to follow up on what we were talking about just a moment ago, I thought I'd seen this correctly. Here's a page that they're here for WrestleZone where they're talking about Finn Balor reveals Elite Balor Club figure. And then they talk about NXT TakeOver action figures, Daniel Bryan, who he drafted for NXT, and so on and so on. But the highlight of that thing there is Finn Balor revealing the Balor Club Elite figure. That definitely leads you to believe when he comes back, we're going with the Balor Club at that point. He's not going to be the face that he started off being.
Right. Well, they did introduce the quote-unquote Balor Club sometime probably the latter end of 2015. Because they started seeing on his Titantron entrance, for NXT, the video screen, would say Balor Club, and there was that speculation running around that Vince McMahon bought the rights to the Balor Club, and that's when the Elite came into the picture, which didn't end up being true in terms of buying the rights to the Balor Club, but he started showing that scruffy little bit of a look with the Balor Club entrance on the screens, which led to believe that there was going to be something involving him and maybe former members of the Bullet Club. And then here comes Anderson and Gallows to the WWE. Here comes AJ Styles to the WWE. And even hints of it backstage. I think it might have been WrestleMania, or not WrestleMania. Survivor Series. No, what was it? SummerSlam. When you seen AJ Styles, Gallows, Anderson backstage, and they tried to get Finn Balor the too sweet, and he just kept on walking.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. I mean, he paused for a second, like he thought about it. It looked like, but then he laughed it off and walked away, like, "No, I can't do that." So that led you to believe maybe they wouldn't do it. But now I'm wondering if they do bring him back and they do the Balor Club now, if they go through with some of the talk after WrestleMania and they shift up the roster and they send Reigns over to SmackDown and AJ over to Raw. Would you have a four-man Balor Club, or would it be AJ versus the Balor Club?
Well, I would think you would have to have a four-man, because if Triple H's plan to do what he's planning on doing actually happens, well, you can't just have, Triple H's crew against the world, so to speak. You're eventually going to have a group that's going to stand up to them. So I think that's where they could eventually come into play if this little roster shakeup happens.
Well, that would be something great to see in my eyes right there. I am a Bullet Club fan. I've not followed every single waking moment of what they do or nothing like that. I'm not like some big mark for the Bullet Club, but I'm a fan of what they do in the ring and what they do together. And I've seen some just what I thought was a shoot interview at first. As it turns out, it's not really a shoot interview. It was just them sitting backstage, talking and sitting with each other, talking to the camera. It's Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Adam Cole, and they're talking about anything from the Hardy Boys, to what. Oh, and Cody Rhodes was back there with them, and talking about Cody Rhodes coming into the mix and everything, and introducing him to the world of the Bullet Club and all this good stuff. And man, it was really cool the way they were interacting with each other and the way they would get what they get with on camera there. It was just like a regular shoot interview, and I'm sure it wasn't on television. If it was beeped out because they had some choice language in there. But it was
I think if it's the video I think you're talking about, it was like they were in a hotel room or something.
I don't know if it was a hotel room or just a backstage locker room type setup or what it might have been, to be honest with you. But I'm sure you've probably seen it. They were, I think the Young Bucks were one of the last to speak, and they were talking about going back to the United States for a while to take some care of obligations there, and made a smart reference to the Hardy Boys or about deleting something or something. I forget exactly how it went now. It was some crazy stuff, though. Like, I could definitely see that now. A Balor Club, a four-man Balor Club of Finn Balor, AJ Styles, and Anderson and Gallows taking on anything Triple H puts together with Owens and Joe and whatever tag team, that would be something great to see there. I would love that.
And it could play out to a great storyline because you have to remember, Styles took over the Bullet Club when Balor left, and it could turn into something along the lines of eventually, a power struggle. And with rumors of Kenny Omega maybe coming in next year because he only signed a one-year deal with New Japan,
right.
There's the third leader of the Bullet Club with Gallows and Anderson taking out AJ Styles. So is it they're going to eventually transition the Bullet Club to the WWE?
Slowly but surely.
Do they start putting WWE guys into the Bullet Club?
I hope not. I don't want to see that. What I want to see is something similar to what they did in WCW with the NWO before they started bringing in people like Luger and Macho and people like that, all right? When you had the outsiders.
Right, before they started watering it down.
Exactly. Man, if you got just the Bullet Club come in, and let's say you got Anderson and Gallows, you got Balor, you got AJ, Kenny Omega comes in. Well, let's say one of them happens to break off that point. AJ or Finn Balor, one of the two, breaks off that point and goes on their own or something, and you bring in Shinsuke Nakamura because he was a part of the Bullet Club. Would he join up with them, or would they keep him separate from the mix? I mean, if you're going to be true to the Bullet Club, you're going to keep Shinsuke Nakamura in with the mix as well when you bring him up to it. And now you've got that original Bullet Club feel going on there, even if they are called the Balor Club at the time, until they can transition into the Bullet Club. No, they don't have the Young Bucks, but still, you can't have every last member of it come in and have a 9 or 10 man stable. They just don't do it that way.
No, and not for nothing, but that's like just saying, hey, it's the Bullet Club against the roster, because essentially there's just so many people in the Bullet Club that it would be like, hey, almost like what WCW did. Well, now we've got our own separate group, so to speak, our own separate organization now, going against, when it was WCW, the NWO versus WCW. Now, then it'll come to a point that, well, now you got the Bullet Club versus WWE, and it's just NWO 2.0, which a lot of people have basically stated that's all that the Bullet Club really became, was the NWO 2.0.
They became the NWO in a sense, yes. I mean, whenever they get to the point to where they started bringing in people from the New Japan roster into the Bullet Club, as well as having their own group there, and they get to be 8, 9, 10 large, that got kind of ridiculous, just like the NWO did. I didn't like that part of it. When it comes to the Bullet Club, to me, when I think of the Bullet Club, I picked up on them after Finn Balor. It was already AJ Styles. So to me, it was AJ Styles, Omega, Anderson Gallows, Nakamura had just come into the fold there.
He wasn't in it long anyway.
No.
Nakamura, he wasn't in it too long.
Right, so you could go either way with him if you wanted to, if you were to bring that in. You could go either way you want with him. He could fight the Bullet Club because he fought the Bullet Club before anyway.
Right.
Not that big a deal. But, that still remains to be seen. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully that'll start playing out before our eyes here soon to give the people out there something new to complain about, at least, because speaking of complaints, leading in our next little part here of Raw, Goldberg comes out to address the fans as the new champion, the new Universal Champion.
Oh, wait. Before you start on that one, the whole Samoa, the first segment they did, we kind of got sidetracked on that one. Sami Zayn coming out, it led you to believe that, well, now you got two, quote-unquote, two former best friends of Kevin Owens, and it led you to believe that there could have been a tag match.
Right.
You know?
You kind of thought there would, but they make two singles matches instead.
Right, and they made it, Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, and I think them putting Owens over Zayn going into this feud with Jericho is going to make him look strong.
I would have rather seen the tag match. I would, but lo and behold, we find out later on there was a different plan to close the show out, and I'm happy they did it that way, not the tag match that I had envisioned. But Goldberg comes out to confront the crowd.
But that we don't have eyes on.
Right. Goldberg comes out and confronts the crowd. We got some boos out there. We got some cheers. It's a little mixture of some. You hear people start chanting Goldberg. He's doing his usual talk. He's thanking the crowd. Of course, he can't do it without them and all this other good stuff. You hear all the baby faces say. Who should we expect to come out? None other than Paul Heyman. And he has with him this time Brock Lesnar, yes. Let's bring him out.
That was a great segment.
It was.
It really was. Paul Heyman, one of the best mic guys. You bring him out and you put him in that situation of Brock Lesnar, and for those that didn't really see what was going on, Paul Heyman basically says, Brock Lesnar wants to shake your hand. He wants to shake the man that took down the beast, that conquered the beast. But the little switch at the end of it, he walks behind behind Goldberg and says, "But you're going to become Brock Lesnar's bitch," and boom, F5.
Right. He gets him to divert his eyes just long enough to slip that F5 in real quick, and he was fast on it too.
Oh yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first real bump. I mean, aside from getting eliminated from the Rumble, that Goldberg's taken since he's been back.
It is. You are correct on that. He's done nothing but spear and jackhammer the whole time he's been back, really. He took one trip over the top rope, and it wasn't that big of a trip. And this is the first real bump he's taken was the F5 there. And it looked like he was, of course he got up from it fine, but, he looked like, to me, like he kind of struggles getting up off the mat a little bit. Unless that was just part of the act, I don't know. I know he's up there in age.
It was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
It was a nice little touch, reaching for that belt on the ground, basically like knowing that he can't give that up. But the boos are coming in, man. They're starting to come in more now on Goldberg because they're realizing it's the same thing that everybody's getting tired of, or that they're saying they're getting tired of seeing, part-timers as a champion.
Did you see the between commercials bit that somebody filmed with a cell phone and put online of Goldberg going back?
No, I didn't. I didn't even catch that one.
He's walking back. He's saying bye to kids on his way out like he does. He's good with the kids. Give him credit where he's due. He's great with the kids. And somebody there yells, "You suck, Goldberg. You suck." And he tells them, watch their mouth. You got kids around here. He goes, just because you're, a jerk or something like that, don't mean you got to act that way around the kids. It's like kind of showing what he's all about, more or less. Really, I mean, it's not like you got some people who could come back for 15 more minutes of fame if they could. I think Ric Flair in a heartbeat, if they told him, Nate, you're 65 years old, but we're going to put that belt on you one more time, man. Come on. He comes strutting down that aisle one more time. I don't think Goldberg really came back.
That are going to boo him.
Yeah, I don't think Goldberg came back just for that 15 minutes of fame again, the belt in his hand. I think he came back more for the kids, really. More than anything, the kids. The fact he's got the belt on him, I'm sure, helps out a lot. But, as far as his legacy goes, and like somebody else mentioned before, if he does happen to go into the Hall of Fame next year, that might have been you, I can't remember. If he goes in the Hall of Fame next year, now he's got the Universal title under his belt as well as the WWE belt.
Yeah, we were talking about accolades that guys would achieve before they go out.
Right. So he's got all that to fall back on. So on his way out the door, he was really fussing at some of those people for what they were doing. But it's kind of like with Roman Reigns in a way. It's evident when he comes out, it's not 100% cheers. At first, they were all happy to see Goldberg come back, and the ones that didn't know him learned who he was from their parents or their older brother had taken them, or whoever took him to the match. They would tell them all about the legacy of Goldberg and what he did and everything, how he was unstoppable and all. And now they're seeing a piece of this on TV in front of them now. But the second something happens where there's that title thrown on them, now all hell breaks loose.
Well, there is rumors speculating with his undefeatedness back in WCW that it really wasn't, what they say, it was 180-0 or something like that, or supposedly there weren't really that many victims, so to speak, in Goldberg's path. That it's like as time went on, you kind of noticed that the numbers kept getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, it's almost like they were counting house shows too, if anything. It wasn't just a week-to-week broadcast thing. You know, they would say, you know, we're throwing in the house shows too, but then even there would be so many extra numbers that you couldn't have had that many house shows between those
did they
two
really
live
have
shows.
House shows for WCW back then?
Yeah, they had house shows,
but not the ruthless travel schedule like WWE has.
No, it's not like they're doing, you know, Nitro on Monday night, hitting a house show Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday night Thunder, hitting some other place on Friday, maybe having a weekend off, or hitting somewhere Saturday and having a Sunday off or something. I don't think they were doing them like that, but they were having house shows still at that time, though. They were definitely having that. I
guess they just didn't come around here enough in my area for them to be relevant in that aspect.
Well, the only reason why I say that they did is because they did come to Nashville twice. I know for sure. I know for sure they were doing them then. I just don't know how often for sure they were doing them. But they did. They did come to Nashville when I was living there, and they came through twice. I went to one of them and seen. Sting was there for sure. Flair, the Horsemen were there. I think this was pre-DDP really, as far as this is pre-NWO time too. This is when well, hold on. Maybe that wasn't. Maybe I'm not thinking the same deal here, because NWO, the Outsiders themselves. How long had Nitro been on the air before the Outsiders came in?
They started in as far as Nitro's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, how many Nitros they have under the belt?
Maybe less than a year, probably, before the Outsiders officially showed up.
Because I was sitting there thinking for sure Nitro was already a thing, and that's why I was going, because it was Monday Night Nitro was always on, and I was always remembering the Saturday night shows on TBS. But it was before the Outsiders came in for sure. I didn't get to go to any show where they had anything to do with the NWO or the Outsiders before it became full-fledged NWO.
Well, let me think. I think it was the Royal Rumble '94 that Brett and Lex both went over the top rope. Right?
I believe so, yes.
And
I can look up to be sure, but I'm not
for a while. So yeah, I think it was '95. I think Luger was only there for a little over a year longer before he left back for WCW. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it was September of '95 that Nitro actually started.
So Scott Hall debuted May 27th, 1996.
Right.
That's when he showed up.
Right.
And of course, you know who was after that.
Showed up. Right. But yeah, it wasn't long. Wasn't long at all.
In 1995, it says, when WCW started airing Nitro on TNT opposite of Raw. So they started that in '95 for sure. I may have seen one during that time frame then. If not, it was just before that, and they were still doing house shows then for sure. I want to say, though, it was when Nitro was already going. But regardless, when it comes to Goldberg, I don't think he's just there to suck up the spotlight to himself. Yeah, I believe he had that one thing where they talked about coming for that one match, and then they talked him into just coming for a little bit more. I think it was the one match with the possibility of more, depending on how he felt about it, I guess.
Right, depending on how he felt performing and how his body held up.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess in his own eyes, he held up long enough for it, and it was great. But after WrestleMania, I don't know. Somebody else was telling me that that's supposed to be like a retirement match, but I haven't heard anything about it being a retirement match.
Yeah, the rumors for the original match list was, I think it was me that might have mentioned that as well. The original idea was it was supposed to be loser leaves, and it was supposed to be Lesnar and Goldberg, and obviously they're not going to have Lesnar leave, especially with a guy. He looks great, don't get me wrong. His physical shape is great, but his ring endurance, his knees, his ankles, they're not what they were, especially at 51 years old.
Right.
So they're not going to keep a guy like Goldberg on long term and get rid of a guy who's 38, 39 years old, and Brock Lesnar, who's probably in the best shape of his life.
I'd say he's got another good, depending on how hard they work him, he's got a good 5 or 6 years of solid work left in him, and then start maybe dwindling down a little bit from there.
Right, he's on maybe like a 12 to maybe 18 appearance schedule a year. So if they keep him on that, you're going to get longevity out of him.
Right. Now, if you sign him with something more long term, then you might start seeing the years dwindle at that point. Like for so many big men, you can see, because if you've ever noticed, I'm sure you have, when it comes to big men, the later in their career, a lot less dates they start showing up for things. It's not quite as often as you'll see them wrestling. They'll show up and make appearances. They'll show up on TV and they'll talk, or they'll do one quick little small scuffle of some sort, or they'll interfere in some match, whatever the case may be.
Prime example, Big Show. He's 40 years old.
Right.
You know, he's already talking retirement next year, and just staying on as an ambassador.
Which would be great, because he does love the company. He likes being there. He likes doing things for the WWE. He likes promoting WWE. You know, he's also pretty big for the kids and everything too. Loves the fans and all. So I could definitely see him doing something backstage, or even, something maybe even on camera, possibly occasionally too.
Right.
And of course, speaking of big people, this big guy's got a little one strapped to his ankle every time he comes out on the show. But Enzo and Cass taking on. Who did they take on? The Bullet? I want to say the Bullet Club. Took on the Club this week for their supposed rematch for the titles, And they were sure they were going to win everything. And, and they thought they was going to win everything. Of course, they ran to Cesaro and Sheamus. I'm not going to do it. I promise. I'm not going to say it. But Enzo,
a cup of haters?
Enzo puts the question out there, What do they got there? He throws it out. They go out there to have their match, and I kind of figured they were going to come out there and cause some kind of trouble at first. They come out there just to watch the match, it looked like, but Enzo gets out of control like he does. I don't know what he wants to call that dance. It looks like the chicken dance with
that bobbing chicken head or something.
It looks like the chicken dance in the middle of a seizure or something, It's crazy. But then he bumps into Cesaro. He spills the coffee on himself, and I guess Sheamus too. He runs up in the ring. Cesaro chases him, ducks a clothesline. He hits one of the Club members. They call disqualification. Of course, now everybody's mad. You ruined their title shot, their repeat title match. Now it's gone. What can they do now? So they're arguing, fighting in the back about it. And we got Foley setting up a match next week leading into WrestleMania. Winner of the tag match goes to WrestleMania as the number one contender, facing Anderson.
Which I can already see the Club interference in that one. But I'll tell you this much: that Brogue Kick to Enzo.
Yeah.
Oh, talk about! I mean, you go from seeing, like they turn around and said, on WWE, like everybody's saying already on the internet world. You look at two guys that were forced into a best of 7 series, forced to be a tag team, to this point now where they're literally like reading each other's minds and they're on point like that. They are a legit threat in the tag team division, and that Brogue Kick is just a point right there. That could be a tag team finisher right there.
But look,
depending on the size of the guy.
That Brogue Kick he put on him, that's one of those things right there, like you was on one of those cop shows like NCIS, where if they needed to find out what kind of boot Sheamus was wearing, they did take the imprint off of Enzo's face, and they could see what boot he was wearing every week.
Poor Enzo. To talk about a drive-by, because he didn't see that coming.
Right. That was something else. But that leads up to WrestleMania, that we talked about them having their return match at WrestleMania for the titles and probably getting the win at WrestleMania for those titles, like a feel-good win and a run with the titles. I don't see them getting a long run with them, though, like we've seen with the New Day. I don't think they'll get a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet you that if anybody gets them, it's going to be the Club taking it right back and then having a bigger feud with Cesaro and Sheamus than what they had before.
Or like what I mentioned before, the Revival coming in, which is probably what's going to happen because they're already 2-time NXT champs. I follow NXT religiously, and they're not, which we'll talk about that later in terms of what's been going on with that, I'm sure. But there's already 2-time champs. They're not going to make room for a 3rd-time NXT champ when they've been ready and raring and primed to come up to the main roster because they're basically the Brain Busters 2.0. You know, they're gritty, ground and pound style. You know, they say that no fist, or all fist, no flying stuff for a reason. You know, they are a real technical tag team, and they have feuded with Enzo and Cass in NXT. As a matter of fact, they took Cass out for 3 months with a knee injury or something.
I believe so. That was actually my next thing I was going to bring up. Well, when you said that, I was like, that's awesome. You were thinking that. The same thing I had on my mind was if it wasn't the club coming back on that, fighting Sheamus and them, they were going to go ahead and bring them on up. And, you know, Triple H's little group would start looking for gold. And you're going to have the tag team gold maybe coming to them eventually off of Enzo and Cass, and then feud with them on that.
Right, because you're already going to have Kevin Owens with the United States Championship. We already know that's happening because Jericho's contract is up after Mania. So there's already one piece of the puzzle right there.
Now let me ask you this: at WrestleMania, if Brock, it's not really a matter of if. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Brock Lesnar is going to take the Universal title at that point from Goldberg. Goldberg's going to be gone. If Triple H's group wants to go back and reclaim that title, who do you send first? Do you send Kevin Owens even if he is the United States champion? Because he has that, he did come out the other day, and he said, I got a return title shot later on. I'm not worried about that right now. Right now, I want to worry about taking yours because you took mine from me. I want to take yours from you. I'm going to get my title shot later on. I'm holding out on that. Do you think they're going to put him up against Lesnar, or they put Samoa Joe against Lesnar?
I think it'll be Samoa Joe because in the long term, if you think about it this way, and I'm thinking in terms of creative writing, you stick Joe against Lesnar. You have Joe take that belt off Lesnar. Somewhere along the line, that little group that Triple H is going to put together isn't going to last. And Kevin Owens will cash in his rematch clause. Like, hey, I want that belt. And it'll be him and Joe.
That would be good too. That would be a good. Matter of fact, they started that on NXT. I believe, did they not?
Yeah, but it never went anywhere.
It didn't. It didn't have a chance because Owens came up.
Right, they didn't have a chance because I think they fought once, and then the Dusty Rhodes Classic came into play, and then that's how everything all went down.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that whole thing pick back up again and really get into a full-fledged feud with those two. That would be great to see. But that is going to be later down the road, though. That's no time soon. And the one thing people out there are going to have to do, because we're going to get a lot of complaining between now and then, we will, people have got to let the stuff unfold. You've got to let the story be told. If you don't let the story be told, how can you expect to get any satisfaction out of it at the end? I mean, if they blew through these feuds and stories at a super fast pace, they'll start running out of things to write about for some of these guys, and they're going to start reaching for stuff the way things used to be, and this is what cracks me up, Ray. You got a lot of people who are yearning and longing for the old school style of wrestling to make a return. They want to see things like it used to be. Well, in a sense, that's kind of like what they're trying to do with some of this stuff by building up a longer storyline with some of these guys. But when they try to do that way, the people come back mad. Now they're taking too long. Well, no, they're not taking too long. They're building something up slowly but surely. Everything from when Samoa Joe conveniently missed the Rumble and showed up on Raw and beat down Seth Rollins.
That was a great way for him to come in, which leads me to my next thought about, building things up. For example, Seth Rollins, Triple H. You know what? Yeah, Rollins got injured again. It sucks. It happens. It's shit like that happens every day in the world of professional wrestling. Okay, you get injured. It happens. And it wasn't supposed to go down that way. But you look at it this way, and it's building for an even better story because even if Rollins doesn't make the Mania, well, now you're setting up for SummerSlam. It may be dragging it out to an extent, but it's also building the suspense. Because look how long this has been going. You look at the vignettes that they put on.
Exactly.
Triple H saying, this is my guy. He puts the NXT title, the first ever NXT champion in Seth Rollins. You bring the whole group up. Well, now Rollins turns his back on the Shield. Well, now it's Triple H's guy. Well, now he's got the belt. Now, then he loses the belt. Now he's the weak link. It's just building and building and building. And there's a lot of people out there that, they're die hard and digging in and doing their research, that they're starting to develop these stories in their head, how they should see things should go. And if it doesn't start leading that way, and I'm one of them, I'm guilty of it, I'm sure you're guilty of doing the same thing, the way you think it should go or the way I think it should go, or Joe Schmo or Billy Bob or whoever, when it doesn't happen that way, well, now their dreams are crushed and they start getting mad.
We all have our ideas of what we'd like to see is the thing. It's not how we think it should go,
right.
It's what we would like to see. And what we would like to see is not always the better picture for the long haul, depending on how you're going to divert the talent later and what direction they're going to go after that. So what we may think would be great to see right now with Goldberg not winning the belt and taking it to Brock Lesnar, and maybe something happened where maybe Brock Lesnar came out, screwed Goldberg out of his title there with Kevin Owens, leading to a grudge match only, and Kevin Owens keeping the belt going to WrestleMania. Would you really want to see him defend against Chris Jericho for the Universal title knowing Jericho wouldn't win it? No, because a lot of people are going to say, well, that's the one belt that's eluded Chris Jericho. We want to see him get it. Well, if he gets it, then he's going to leave and go on tour for a while. He's going to give up the belt. Now they're going to have a tournament for the belt.
Really. Right, but it's not really the belt that's eluding him because the belt
for a belt.
Right, but you look at it this way: it's not. It can't really be classified as the belt that has eluded him. The United States Championship, now that's a belt that eluded him, going all the way back to his WCW days. Okay.
Yeah.
But the Universal Championship, I really wouldn't consider that being the belt that eluded him because aside from Finn Balor, who held it for one night. I'm not even going to count.
It's relatively new.
The only champion's ever been Kevin Owens. It hasn't even celebrated its 1 year anniversary yet. Maybe next year, a year later, then that could be considered the one belt that's eluded Chris Jericho.
I guess what I mean by eluded Jericho was that was one of the belts that's the one belt he hasn't at one point worn. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not necessarily eluded him, but it's the one belt he don't have.
Class or whatever it is.
Right, so if he gets to WrestleMania and that title's on the line, you're going to want to see him win it so he gets into his collection because he's at that age where he won't be around with a lot of more years of great wrestling at that point, I don't believe. The body can only take so much, and he does multiple things. He doesn't just do wrestling. He's always on tour, on the road a lot, too, with his band and stuff like that. That takes a toll on the body as well.
But he does the podcast weekly, I believe.
Podcast, exactly, he does. And I like the way that it turned out. I'm liking the fact now because you get to sit back and reevaluate after you think of how it should go, and you see what they're doing. You sit back and you reevaluate. You say, look, Goldberg's got the belt. He's going to lose it to Brock. We're going to get to see Brock Lesnar probably take on Kevin Owens or Samoa Joe. That's going to be something worth seeing right there. Especially if it's somebody who can give him, and I'm thinking, like you said, Samoa Joe gives him the better match. They can both do that shoot style kind of wrestling in a way. They get the where Joe looks like he could be in MMA if he really wanted to. Brock's done in the MMA. Brock's got the strength to throw people around. Samoa Joe's thrown people around. Plus, he's got the quick athletic moves to stay with him. He's just big enough to take some of the punishment and give some back out.
Well, if you remember correctly, there were rumors circulating that there was talks about bringing Samoa Joe up to face Brock Lesnar. But in terms of, you think that this might be a better match with Goldberg-Lesnar, it still falls in the same category as Owens Jericho. Everybody knows that Goldberg's leaving after Mania. So everybody knows that Lesnar's going to win it. I think that if you would have done
you look past that. That's the difference. You look past that and see what's the better scenario past that, though. And I think the whole scenario that you mentioned earlier with Samoa Joe or somebody facing Lesnar for the championship is a better path with more entertainment down the line than what we would have had the other way if it had gone the other way.
But it could still, the other way could still fall in that picture in terms of, say it would have been championship versus championship. You know what I mean? Both titles on the line. In United States, Universal. Obviously, Kevin Owens would win it. But I don't know if Jericho's tour schedule is that hectic. There's nothing necessarily stopping him from clearing up Monday nights, saying, I have to be here on Monday night and then fly back out after the show. Lesnar was on when he was champion, he was on whenever they needed them basis. The same thing could have been for Jericho. At least if he shows up once every 30 days and has a match, even if he wins it, in the long run it could still play out as, okay, well now you got Triple H building his new little stable. Well, now you got Jericho that has two pieces of gold that's eluding that stable as of right now. If this whole revival thing fell into place and they won the tag titles, you still got Jericho with these two belts, okay? Which in terms would lead him to build his own little allegiances, whether it's with Sami Zayn, whether it's with Enzo and Cass, whether it's whoever. It could still build into a 4-on-4 or a feud between somebody and Triple H's group. So it could work out either way. So,
well, time will tell on that. What do you think about the end of the match? Not the end of the match, I'm sorry, but the end of the show. Braun Strowman was going to call Roman Reigns out. He goes to the ring, and he's yelling for him to come out there now. He's not done with him. He wants to finish where he left off, and he was not happy about his loss that he took. And instead of Roman Reigns' music hit, we hear the Undertaker's music hit, and the Undertaker comes out.
Oh, wait, we missed the women. Oh, well.
Oh, wait, did we have the women? We did, didn't we? You know what?
We did. We had Bayley versus Sasha. If Sasha won, it would become a triple threat match.
What?
If Bayley won, Sasha would be out of Mania.
You know what? I see where I got it written down. I did jump over that. My bad. Let's jump back to the women real quick, so we don't want to skip over them or anything. That was a good match, though.
There was something else we missed.
Well, we didn't talk about. We didn't really talk.
Neville.
We didn't. Him and Rich Swann did have a match early in the show.
And that was probably the best match of the night.
Oh,
and
you know what? Can we go back to that for a second? Because I did want to talk to you about that, because I know you're big on 205 Live. Finally, of course, now the match itself, I don't want to take nothing away from the match. It was a good match. It was a fun match to watch.
It was one of the better ones I've seen in quite some time, aside from the pay-per-view.
I think Rich Swann and Neville have a good chemistry with each other in the ring when they wrestle. They led a really good, fast-paced match there. The highlight to me of it, though, was the interview in the ring afterwards. And Austin Aries comes down there to interview Neville, for the people out there. And when it comes down to it, Neville finally puts two and two together, I guess, and realizes the fans are wanting Austin Aries to get in the mix. And Neville questions that, and when he does, he just flat floors him and leaves him, basically.
Yeah.
Finally, he steps out in the limelight to get his name out there, back out into the ring again. I was happy to see that.
And what works out so well is, like you said, the fans are getting behind Austin Aries. They've already been seeing the vignettes flashing, with everything that Aries has done thus far in WWE. And the way he ends it with, I have one more question for you. Actually, it's more of a statement. And just and with Neville, like, every time he talks, the spit's come out, and you can see Austin Aries getting pissed off more and more and more. And I have a statement for you. Just bam, blast him with the microphone. Hits him with his moves, hits him with that discus forearm, which that is a nasty move right there in its own, and just lays him out. And has Neville backpedaling. It's a great start to the story, a great start for the build going into WrestleMania, even though it's only 3 weeks away from tonight.
Right, and think about this: since 205 Live has been out as a regular show, not the actual tournament that led up to it, because we all know that was great. But the show itself has not had a ton of excitement when it comes to stars out there. How exciting is it to finally see someone like Austin Aries and Neville making what, in my opinion, so far is the biggest feud of sort, if you want to call it that, for the title that they've had so far.
Right, and it's one of those things where, okay, it may only be a 3-week build, but the Cruiserweights have 2 platforms to do it on. They got it on Raw, and they got the 205 Live. So that essentially will turn it from a 2-week build-up to, we'll say, a 4 or 5-week build-up because of the the multiple shows.
Right. And don't forget, Austin Aries has been on the announcer table for a while. He's been hinting at things at the announcer's table for quite some time now. And when he goes out and interviews these guys, you can tell he's kind of putting himself out there, instead of
for a fight.
Exactly. So it's been more of a 3 to 4 week buildup if you think about how long he's been out there doing his thing leading up to this.
Right, and I think what's great about it, like you said, now that you're finally getting some kind of excitement going on, you got to look at it this way. And it's like what I mentioned last week, about possibly bringing in guys like Hideo and Itami when they come up. I think the reason that people are so bored and why the Cruiserweight division started getting a little bit of a lift in terms of notoriety and people watching when Neville came in is because you've got guys in there, aside from Brian Kendrick, which many people forget, he's a former WWE heavyweight champion. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, Championship Scramble back in, I think, 2008.
That was a good while back. I remember that.
He got a pinfall in the middle of that Championship Scramble, so he held the belt. But, you got guys like Brian Kendrick. You've got guys like Tajiri. But you've got all these other guys, Drew Gallagher, T.J. Perkins, Rich Swann. All these guys, unless you are a full-fledged, indie guy watching indies and all around, then you'll know who they are. But for these casual viewers that catch it once in a while, they're not going to know who it is, and they're going to lose interest. So you start bringing guys like Neville, like Austin Aries. You start bringing them into the picture. Well, now you've got more eyes on it. You've got more eyes going, okay, well, now that I know this guy's in here, I'm going to start watching it more. So it's bringing more viewership towards 205 Live when you bring the bigger names into it.
Exactly, and I can't help but wonder eventually, you've brought this up yourself a couple of times calling into the show about people like, how do you say his name, Tommaso or Ciampa, I believe?
Oh, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny
Tommaso
Gargano.
Ciampa. Yes, those two guys, they were in the tournament deal. Do you think, at any point, of course, it depends on how the tag team scene's probably going. They're a favorite tag team, but let's say they bring them up as a tag team for a while and eventually split them up. It's not like completely out of the picture that they couldn't move them to 205 Live with some other people to start making a stronger roster, because right now they've got the roster to start with, but that's not set in stone, obviously. It's going to be changed and revamped over time. You could see those two guys move over to there with Hideo Itami, go there as well. Some people from outside of the company coming in, they get brought in, could possibly go from NXT over to 205 Live, not even come up to Raw or SmackDown's roster. So we got a chance here still.
You still got guys like Enzo that fall in that 205 weight class.
Well, you do, right. And if they were bringing them up,
could be a great spot. Right, yes. And he would be a guy on the mic. He would be a mic guy who his in-ring ability isn't the greatest, but the guy can talk. So that would bring eyes as well, because everybody who's anybody loves when Enzo picks up that mic because they want to hear what jibber jabber, smack talk and Skywalker can do. Right.
And eventually that's going to be something that more people are going to talk more about. And if you think about it, for someone like us watching wrestling right now, 10 years from now, if it's still up and going, people are going to be like, man, this 205 Live is some pretty good stuff. And we're going to be sitting there like, we told you. We were in on the ground floor when it came out. We saw the tournament leading up to it. We were there for the first show on the network. We saw all this stuff going on. It had great potential to start with, and people dogged it at first. And a lot of people have dogged it as far as what they think it's about, how great it can be. I've even had a couple of times, a couple of weeks, where I just really was not interested in it at all, and I turned it off because nothing they were doing was putting out there was entertaining for me to stay on there. The matches weren't as great as they had previously with the tournament deal. They kind of spoiled us early with the tournament and then gave us a more dialed back show, which I understand why they do it. I get it. I'm not mad at it. But it's like some of the guys they had in the tournament that we would love to have seen on the show itself just weren't there.
Oh, you mean like Zack Sabre Jr.?
Zack Sabre Jr. was a key one right there. That one was a definite one right there. I don't understand how he didn't make the cut unless there was other obligations he may have had that he had to fulfill
Another one,
first.
Kota
and then come back.
Ibushi.
Yes, he had a great. I believe he was one of them. There was it him and one other person had probably the greatest match of the whole tournament right toward the end of it there. Not the final matchup.
It was him and Brian Kendrick. When Brian Kendrick hit him with that hammer drop that illegal hammer drop that you don't see people use, and Ibushi landed right on the top of his head. And still won the match.
They just had some great stuff going on with it. So I can't say enough about this whole thing with Austin Aries stepping up with Neville. To me, that opens the door now to start having more quality, better matches coming in. And in the next 2 to 3 years, I think we're going to be surprised pleasantly with the people that they do bring in and put in 205 Live. They may even go ahead and up the weight class by 5 or 10 pounds just to squeeze a few more people in. You never can tell.
Right. And one last thing I want to add to before we move on to the women's segment is, if WWE wants to get it right and wants to start getting more viewers, move guys that are in that 205 weight class, like Kofi, like Xavier, like Enzo, like Kalisto, and stuff like that. Guys that people know on the main roster on live television that your casual viewers know. Shift them over into that division. You know, they're bringing guys that nobody's ever heard of in there, that nobody wants to watch if they've never heard of them. You bring guys you know that starts getting eyes in and start transitioning these other guys into the mix.
Exactly, but like Mike said last week, they're not going to take either one of the New Day and move them. That's their cash cow right now. They're helping put money in pockets with the sales and stuff and everything. So that's not going to happen with them. Although it would be a great move to do. But the women's match they had, the women's match wasn't that bad. Maybe, but only if they split them. They have to do something find something to do with Big E. The problem is finding something to do with Big E. You got to find something that's worthy of pushing Big E towards. And I don't know if you have anything on Raw right now that's worth pushing Big E towards. He's not going to be
stale.
He's not going to be the U.S. title. When he's by himself, he's not as great. When he's got Kofi and the other guy around him, he's gold. But by himself, he's that key guy
that is meant to be in a group.
Exactly.
Great athleticism for a big guy. But his mic skills, unless he's got a group, unless he's got something that just to keep you interested in what he's doing necessarily, he's going to falter, just like when he did when he was the Intercontinental Champion. Just like he did when he tried to have that feud against Rusev. He's going to falter. Even though he's a former NXT champion, it'll be the end of him. And I don't see him lasting very long if the New Day splits.
Not all former NXT champions have come to the main roster and done very well. Just check out Bo Dallas. That should tell you right there. Not too well at all. The women's deal they got going on, they're leading. They finally led into the multiple person match at WrestleMania for the title. It's no longer just going to be Bayley versus Charlotte at this point. They're going to throw in Sasha Banks in the mix as well. My wonder, between now and then, there's still time to get one more person in there. I wouldn't doubt it if Stephanie didn't work something out to get the little blonde girl in there. What's her name that runs with Charlotte a lot?
Oh, I wouldn't be Dana Brooke.
Dana Brooke.
I wouldn't. It's going to end up being Nia Jax.
I was thinking Nia Jax or Dana Brooke, but she's got Dana Brooke hanging around her all the time, coming out all the time, and she would help her win the title, whereas Nia Jax would be looking to get the title. So it depends on what direction they're trying to push it, because if they're trying to push Charlotte as getting that belt again, which I hope they're not right away, because she's going to have it too many times in too short of a time, and that kind of makes it kind of stale in the fans' mind there, because it's just Charlotte again. She's going to get the belt, I guess. It's we don't want to see that. It's a little bit different. So if they're going to do it, you want to put someone like a Nia Jax out there, and I'm not saying put the belt on Nia Jax right now necessarily, but make it to where she does something that causes the person that gets the belt to win. Like she does the finishing move that would have got her the win. Someone pulls her off somehow or keeps her from getting the win, puts their move on her while somebody else jumps on the one that just got finished off by her and steals the win real quick. And I don't know if it'd be Bayley keeping the belt or Sasha stealing the win real quick. But hopefully it would stay with that direction there and then build up something bigger going against Nia Jax at SummerSlam.
Well, here's my theory on this. First of all, the match, I've seen way too many botches in the match in general, which surprises me because of what they did in NXT against each other.
They were just like the lighting each other in NXT. They were great matches there between the two.
Right. And I guess it's just the Sin Cara effect. You dim the lights, you don't see the botches really. But I see it coming out as to where maybe Charlotte's going to bitch and moan about something about how, okay, she's going to get herself in hot water by admitting she interfered in the match, and it didn't work out in her favor, and she's going to claim it's not fair. But if they really want to put the belt on Charlotte at WrestleMania, do it in a way where, okay, well, now all the odds are against you. Not having help, but all the odds, because now you're putting this monster of Nia Jackson, or as you like to call, She-Quake, okay? You put her in the ring. Well, now there's a legitimate threat, a bigger threat to Charlotte. Now, it's funny because this past weekend I had, I'll say the pleasure of meeting Lita. And I actually asked her, I said, you as a former 4-time women's champion, do you feel that they're soiling or just disgracing the legitimacy of the women's championship by Charlotte already being, a 5-time women's champion in a year? And in Lita's words, she says, if she's had it 4 times, she's lost it 4 times. For every time she loses it, she's going to get it back. So that means she's good. They must feel something good about her to want to put it back on her, even if it is in this amount of time. And we got talking about people that should have a title, like, for example, Natalya, which we'll get on that, when we talk about SmackDown. But, they put Natalya with Nikki Bella because Nikki's neck injuries. Natalya is a very safe worker. She's a veteran. She's going to make sure that Nikki does not get hurt. She should be rewarded for that. Give her a title. But Lita stated that Charlotte may have been born into the industry, but she is athletic. She may not initially chose the path until later down the line, unlike Natalya, who was dead set on it from the get-go. But she still feels that there is legitimacy, and she doesn't feel threatened at all at the fact that Lita's traveled the world and busted her ass and grinding and putting rings together and doing the whole 9 that indie stars did when she was down in Mexico being trained, by, all these people down in Mexico and then being trained by Terry Funk. She don't feel threatened at all. She says she sees it a great thing as to where it's going. She said she's the best heel in the business, meaning Charlotte.
She is a great heel. I got to give her credit there. She's a great heel. I think what she's, one way you can look at it is like this. Lita's time in wrestling was a different time than what Charlotte is right now. Just like it was a different time in wrestling when Moolah was there. Things were handled a different way in each one of these time frames that these stars have been out there doing the deal.
Right, just like it was a different time when Natalya started. That's what Lita also touched on. Natalya started at a low point, a very, very low point in the women's division. When it was, let's bring the models in, let's bring the looks in, let's bring the half-naked women in, and not care about the women's wrestling. And Natalya started in that and has worked her way through all of that.
Mm-hmm. She was probably one of the one of the only legitimate wrestlers throughout that time period, and she has persevered and stayed with it. And she's still, she's still there. She is still a thing to deal with. So
and she deserves to be rewarded.
I think she does. I wouldn't be mad at all if she wins the title. I really wouldn't. I mean, I'm an Alexa Bliss fan. Y'all know that. I think she's a great heel. She talks that microphone great. She annoys people. She plays that role to a T, and it's almost like she enjoys it. She looks like that. Well, that doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. But she. But it's almost like she relishes it. She enjoys doing it.
Right, but I would love to touch more on that when we get to SmackDown. Speaking of titles, you also had Chris Jericho versus Samoa Joe after this match.
Right.
Now, my question for you is, we're going to do a little role reverse here. My question for you is, how do you feel, you had Samoa Joe and Jericho, and it ended up being Jericho being counted out. Now, do you feel that makes Jericho look strong or look weak, considering he hit the code breaker after everything was said and done?
I don't think it makes him look weak because he took that finishing move of Joe's where it pretty much, just knocks you, clean out. He didn't quite knock him out with it, but he got him to the point where he was weak enough that he wasn't getting up and crawling back in that ring to beat the 10 count either. So to me, Samoa Joe didn't lose and get made look weak. Chris Jericho didn't get made look weak on the count out, taking the move he took, and Chris Jericho kind of got the last word in with the code breaker. And I kind of like the way that played out, because it's like Chris Jericho telling Joe, "I don't lay down for nobody. You might have got that. You might have got one up on me outside the ring out there. Kudos to you, but no one gets one deal. No one one ups Chris Jericho." And he let him know that.
That I agree with you on. I feel it was a strong building for both, because it's still showing Joe's dominance, and it still shows it's going to take a lot more than Samoa Joe to keep Chris Jericho down.
Right. And then the match itself was pretty good as well. They had a good, well-paced match. A lot of nice moves going between two, a lot of good counters and everything that you would expect to see from two people who've been in the business for a while. It was just a great overall match they put up there for the fans. But
I wish
in the
it would
end,
have been more for their first meeting, just like in the WWE. Well, actually, I think that's their first meeting ever. So I wish it would have been more. Unlike last week when you've seen Cesaro against Joe, who have fought in Ring of Honor, you would have expected more than a 5-minute match. But all things considering the storyline, where it's going, and the feuds that are happening right now, it was solid for the short time that they had.
Right, and don't forget they had to make room for the end of the show too. They had to make room for which is where I almost jumped too quickly to earlier.
Yeah, because you were a little excited about this one.
Well, I got to admit though, it was kind of, I've been waiting to see how they're going to play this out in a sense. When Braun Strowman calls out Roman Reigns, and instead the Undertaker's music kicks in, he comes to the ring, and when he gets in, Strowman just kind of easily backs his way out of it, like, I ain't afraid of you, but I'm not looking for you now. But I'm going to go ahead and bow out, and I'm going to let you have the ring, kind of deal.
I don't know if you noticed, but it wasn't just Taker's music that hit. You heard the Donna. You started to hear Roman Reigns, then you heard the gong.
Right. Then he cuts him off and comes out there and confronts. And what was great to me, this is what I've been waiting to see. This is the build-up since Royal Rumble, when he eliminates him and he mouths to him, "This is my yard," when he's up in the ring up there. This is the build-up we've been waiting for, to see what's going to happen. He gets in the ring, and he's about to go ahead and leave, I guess, since he got Strowman to leave the ring. Then you hear Reigns' music kick in, and the boos start coming on. He comes to the ring, gets up in there and tells him, what's going on. He called me out here, not you. And in all due respect, Taker, he goes, "This is my yard now." And he's just staring at her.
You look at him. He looked a little shook, and I don't know if it's because it's the first time he's legitimately been face to face with Taker without the Shield. But you could see signs of looking shook. And you were talking about people booing. I watched the clip that WWE put on YouTube. Like the replay clip they did. They edited out the booing. They had to murmur it down because the boos were they were deafening.
Well, there's a lot of talk online. They do that at the house shows too. When he comes out, they will not the house shows, but I mean when they do the Raw, the live Raw shows. People who attend the shows will tell you that there is a lot more booing going on that you can't hear on TV, because they do things to go ahead and tone it down where you can't hear it. They even pipe in some cheers through the speakers.
Oh, I've been there for that myself at live shows. Last year, leading into WrestleMania last year, when it was supposed to be Triple H and Roman, they died it down on replays. It was so loud there, you couldn't even hear yourself half the time with the boos. Exactly,
but the way it ended with him choke slamming, looking at the WrestleMania sign and then looking back at him as if to say, he says, "This is my yard now." He looks at that WrestleMania sign as if to say, "You want to put it on the line at WrestleMania?" And then when he gets him by the throat, it's almost like you got that feel. The Roman Reigns, the character, he gets that feel for the first time of the strength the Undertaker has when he grabs you by that throat. It's not like he just grabs you and you can break free automatically. He's got that grip on you, and he's then got you in the air and slamming you down before you know it, and walking out while you're on your back. And this is going to pick up the WrestleMania.
Real or not, don't want to be grabbed by the Undertaker like that. No way in hell.
No. I would pass on it myself. I definitely would.
I would rather get punched in the face by the Big Show.
Yeah, or get Suplex City by Brock Lesnar a couple of times maybe. I don't know. It was a great ending to the
build.
show the way they did it, I thought. I thought they ended it just perfectly by not having no big showdown between the two, but just something quick and to the point by The Undertaker, because he's not going to make too many appearances on Raw, and just having him put him down.
Right, they don't build like they used to with Taker because of his age and his limitability. You know, it's more or less of, if you're the one, he's looking at you and he's looking at that sign, and that's all she wrote. You know, and you know how I feel. I mean, you know I'm not a Roman Reigns guy. You've seen my posts about how something started 15 years ago, and that's what it should it should end now, and you know what I'm referring to.
Right, I saw that. I think I'm one of the last ones to post on that one. I was like, sorry, man, I got to say it.
Right, but I mean, even you got to agree, to some extent, maybe 2-3 years ago, it would have been great, you know, because Undertaker was still in better shape. But not for nothing, you're putting him in a ring with a guy that moves like Cena. You know, he's limited abilities, more strength. So, but I think if you would have put a guy like Taker in a match with Cena for his last match, something that the world has wanted to see, you know, because it hasn't been something they've never faced in 15. Well, they faced once in 15 years, and that was at the beginning of Cena's career. You know,
I think
something to culminate now, I think it would have been better to put him in a ring with Cena, because Cena is a seasoned veteran, is a guy that could be a lot safer than what Roman Reigns could be.
I think one of the things that was brought up in your post as well was that why should John Cena be the one given the chance to face Undertaker if this is the last WrestleMania that Undertaker might have? It's not a guarantee that it will be, but what if it is? What if last year was the last one he ever had? What if the streak was the last one? We don't know. He keeps coming back every WrestleMania. We don't know how long he'll go. What if he has one more in him and next year it is John Cena instead? But let's just say, for example, let's assume this is his absolute last WrestleMania, because we have no guarantee of him being here or being able to wrestle next WrestleMania. What if Roman Reigns is his last WrestleMania and he's passing the torch on to him? Let me ask you this, because I put this in the post as well. If you are doing the passing of the torch to the next generation down the line, the next person who is supposedly the next big dog running the yard, we all know that the WWE puts that title on Reigns anyway more than John Cena right now. John Cena brings in the Bucks, but as far as a person who's going to be the main go-to throughout the next few years down the road, they've already slapped that label on Roman Reigns, and they're not backing off of it. So would you turn around and let Taker fight Cena and say, here's my torch, you're the big dog, give it to him next year? Or do you just go ahead and get it out of the way and just go ahead and write it off to Roman Reigns? He may or may not even win. He don't have to win either to have the torch passed to him. That's the key thing. He doesn't have to win to get the torch passed down to him by the Undertaker. He just has to have an Undertaker sign off on him. So he fights the Undertaker, say the Undertaker wins, but after the match, he's kind of raising Reigns' hand saying, you know what, this guy's okay. I'm signing off on him. He's the guy. And he leaves. I mean.
But did we ever have a passing of the torch to John Cena?
No.
And
no, he didn't, because Undertaker
when the Rock held up Cena's hand, it was, you know what I mean? But it's also one of those, it was, he already gained Undertaker's respect back when Cena started. He gained a lot. It's Kurt Angle. Nobody's seen a guy that nobody ever heard of come into that ring when Kurt Angle said anybody from the back, and Cena walks out in regular trunks, if I'm not mistaken, pink trunks, okay, and gives Angle a match of his career, okay, on SmackDown. Nobody ever seen that coming, okay? But a guy that has done everything for this company. You heard it last week on SmackDown. I wanted The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and instead I'm here and I got you. And he said that to The Miz. That's more like spitting in a man that's did everything for you for 15, 16 years in John Cena, or however long, 12, 13, 14, 15, better part of a decade, okay? And you're going to spit in his face and not give him the one match he wanted? Kind of two-sided on that one.
You brought up The Miz just a second. You threw his name out there. I got to bring up something in just a minute. But before we jump into SmackDown, I want to cover two quick things here because they won't take long. They're two total different organizations. We hardly ever talk about them because WWE usually has so much stuff out there. But this past week on Impact Wrestling, we get a new World Heavyweight Champion and a former WWE Champion taking the belt, and Alberto El Patron shows up for the show, challenges Lashley. EC3 is none too happy about it, comes out and shows up, talks about you don't just walk in and get a title match, you earn your title match here. But just the same, gets a title match. Now, when it's all said and done, he wins that belt. And there were some people that... Controversially, they say, but who brought the belt in the ring to begin with? They say Lashley brought it in. I didn't quite catch that part, but they said Lashley brought it in. He introduced the belt to the match. Patron got a hold of it, knocks him out with it.
But, right.
And then gets the win. Not the official or the original referee counting them out, but they try to play it out at the end of it with Bruce Pritchard walking out with him saying, you don't want to win it that way. That's not how it's done. You don't want to win it like that. And he's telling him, I got 1, 2, 3. How do I know he's not the original referee? I'm out there in this fight. I'm all, groggy or whatever. He didn't quite say that, but I'm thinking, how's he supposed to know? He don't know who counted. Someone counted as a referee. They counted. They gave him the 3 count. He wins the title. He walks out with it. I don't know how they're going to handle that in the upcoming events. Will he just be keeping the title? Will they strip him of the title based on how he won it? I don't think they can, because if they do, it's unusual to do that. So I think they're going to keep him with it.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep him with it, and there's also rumors circulating that with him being there, do you know who was backstage?
Paige, I'm sure.
Yep, at a rival company's event while she's still under contract.
Ain't that something right there? Talk about asking to get the termination papers given to you.
Yeah, right.
She may work her way toward that way quicker than she wants. But I just wanted to bring that up.
This Del Rio. Well, wait a minute before you say anything.
Yeah.
Del Rio is supposed to be wrestling in England against another guy that has asked for his release, and that's Jack Swagger. But he was supposed to appear, but now WWE says if you're released from a company, you're not allowed to compete anywhere for 90 days. So that match has been put on a standstill till the end of the year.
Well, that's fine. I mean, Jack Swagger and Alberto Del Rio had some good matches with each other in WWE. Outside of WWE, right. I'm sure they can make even some better matches if they wanted to, putting those two against each other. I would love to see him come there as well.
And the irony is it's the wrestling fed in England owned by Del Rio's girlfriend's family.
Mm-hmm. I can believe that. I'll tell you what I would like to see happen in the meantime. I would like to see, and I don't think we're going to get it because I'm sure Lashley will get a return match with him. Maybe they can work out both of them in the 90-day time frame. I'm sure they probably could. But I wouldn't mind seeing the EC3 in there with a little bit of a feud with Patron for that title. Seeing a couple title matches out of them, that would be something good to
WWE, see. Right, especially with something that WWE missed the boat on.
Oh, they did, big time. Big time. They missed him on that. I don't know why or how they let that get by them. But that was the biggest thing I want to talk about was that they didn't have a great show other than that, to be honest with you. Impact didn't. It wasn't. I mean, all I saw was the highlights. I didn't get to watch the actual matches. Cody Rhodes showed up for a minute looking for Moose, knowing Moose wasn't there. He's in Japan right now. He's trying to start a mess with him over his wife. You had some tag match out there that, to be honest with you, I didn't know who either one of them were. I have not seen those of Impact lately to know who they were.
They did a vignette showing Jeff Hardy boxing a kangaroo or doing something with a kangaroo, and all of a sudden it went blank, and all of a sudden the K has the tag titles. That's their way of writing the Hardys off, which leads me into this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This past weekend, the Hardy Boys in Ring of Honor, which everybody already knows, has beaten the Young Bucks in Manhattan, okay, for the tag titles. But there was a match that we were starting to speak about, could possibly come to the WWE, and that's Adam Cole. Adam Cole just lost the ROH World Title to, which I'm happy to see this happen because he deserves it, Christopher Daniels.
Exactly, the fallen angel. He's been around so long, and to see him to get that title now, of all the chances he's had at Ring of Honor to get that belt, to finally come out and get that title.
Well, not only just there, but everywhere else. He's never
TNA as well. He was at TNA.
Title.
No, he had some great matches against AJ Styles though, but never had
came
that
out on top.
Title. No, he did not. It was great to see that happen for him finally. I was really happy about that. And as far as Cole goes, he's been rumored for the past couple of months of not renewing with Ring of Honor, that he might consider other options. and they're talking NXT to be his landing point.
Well, and the funny thing is, speaking of that Ring of Honor, pay-per-view or event, you've seen the Briscoes and Bully Ray taking on War Machine, and now this just blows my mind because if I read this correctly, he's now taken his father's name.
Yes, Davey Boy Smith Jr.
He's going by Davey Boy Smith Jr.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Natalya talked about him possibly coming back to the WWE in the future, wrestling under that name as well. And that would be the perfect timing that if they were going to ever put Davey Boy Smith in the Hall of Fame, as long as there was no family intervention like there has been so far for the Harts and everything, that would be the prime time to induct him in there at that point. But that's few and way down the road and may not ever happen for all we know. But that was
I signed that petition.
That was also a fun match to watch. Now I believe Bully Ray showed up the same night that the Hardys did.
Yes.
And he told him, said as far as he's concerned, he's with Ring of Honor because he said he hasn't been a career in wrestling until he's tackled the Ring of Honor, and that's what he's here for now, to see what it's all about. So putting him with the Briscoes in that six-man tag match I thought was great because everybody's calling them Dim Boys and Bully Ray. Now
and it fits.
And it was good. And now the other tag match, the Hardys versus the Young Bucks versus, what's their names? I don't forget the names.
It's Trent Beretta and the other guy, and I can't remember what his name is.
They got some initials they use for a tag match anyway, or a tag team. But yeah, that was a great,
Vice Boys or something
match.
Like that. Something Vice or Vice Boys or something.
AFT Vice, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, but you're right. It has Vice in there. It was a great match all around. I thought that was really cool. They had a lot of big high spots in it. I'm not a big fan of bringing out the thumbtacks when they do that stuff. It gives little shivers of pain run up and down me when I see them land on them.
Yeah, it gets a little squeamish.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's not like you had a little bit of blood on Matt Hardy's shoulder there. It wasn't anything big, but I mean, the overall tag match was great with them, and you're going to see some more of them and the Young Bucks down the road, it looks like. Everybody's always screaming Super Kick Party. They're tired of the Super Kick Party, but I like the Young Bucks. I think they put a good product out there.
A clip surfaced, and it was a very short clip. I was actually shown this by a band as Triple M. Surfaced of Adam Cole basically smack talking the Young Bucks.
Yes, trying to fire them from the Bullet Club.
Right.
Like he's boss.
Speaking of Bullet, right, exactly. And speaking of Bullet Club, because the rumors have circulated of Frankie Kazarian being in the Bullet Club now, he wins the television title.
But then didn't Frankie Kazarian come out there in that match and rip off the Bullet Club shirt and have on the Christopher Daniels shirt?
Yep. But it still led me into the fact that Frankie Kazarian is now the television champion.
Right.
So kudos to him as well. You know what I mean? It's great to see these guys that really didn't get that big shot in terms of singles gold finally getting that shot.
Right. And for the people out there who are listening, don't make fun of Ring of Honor Wrestling. I'm serious. It's a great product they put out there. So many huge names have come through there that's in WWE right now. Ring of Honor brought them through.
Joe, AJ Styles, CM Punk, Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan. I mean, the list goes on.
Cesaro.
And you still got guys down there that
Seth Rollins,
deserve
Tyler
to
Black.
come. Right. You've still got guys down there that deserve to come up to WWE, i.e. the Briscoes. And that's family lineage right there. Guys
a bunch of them said they wouldn't go, though. A bunch of them said they wouldn't go, though, because they like how the Ring of Honor does their stuff. They feel no pressure there. They don't want to go.
Right. They have creative control over their guys, is what the main thing is.
And they're happy with what they're doing and where they're at. Now, that, to me, is what the argument I had with Mike here one weekend on the show here. And Mike's fallback the whole time was, well, they're going to go with the money every time. Well, no, not every time.
Always.
Because if that's the case, then the Briscoes would be there already. The Young Bucks would be there already. Jay Lethal would be there already doing something. I mean,
Right.
they wouldn't still be sitting there. So for them, it's
and
about having control of their character, entertaining the fans, being a big part of wrestling, doing something they enjoy. No, they're not making six figures a year, but they are making enough to definitely live on, and they're doing something they enjoy doing, and the fans see it and they love it.
Right, without repercussions. Prime
Right.
example, Rusev cuts his hair against WWE's knowledge. Now he's in hot water.
Oh yeah, ain't that some funny stuff? You know what? That kind of leads us to another thing right now about being in hot water from doing something for themselves, and this gets us to I know where you want to be here with SmackDown, which is good because we got 40 minutes left. We'll go in and cover SmackDown the rest of the show here because we got everything else in, thankfully.
Well,
here.
Before we jump into SmackDown, can I cover NXT real quick since it's real small?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Great match for a main event. Well, I'll start off. The beginning of the night, you had the Authors of Pain were supposed to go against the Revival. If I remember correctly, because I had a lot going on while I was watching it. But the Authors of Pain basically chased the Revival out the ring. So that's going to segue, I feel, into NXT TakeOver. There was a satellite interview but separate interviews. Cassius Ohno, who has stated the last time he was in that performance center, it was just still a warehouse. So that goes to tell you how long it's been since he's been there, against Bobby Roode, which they're supposed to have a contract signing, I think, next week. Then you had Billie Kay versus Ember Moon. Now, I don't know if you got the chance to catch NXT, Chris.
Yes,
this week,
not this past week, but I have seen.
That Eclipse move, that top rope stunner that Ember Moon does,
that's something else.
I feel that might not get used much longer because she injured Billie Kay bad, like to the point that the fans got dead quiet. And you've been to many shows where someone gets hurt, it's quiet.
Oh, I got to look
really,
that up.
You could hear a pin drop. Yeah,
I got to see that. I didn't get to see that. I didn't get to watch it this week.
EMTs were in there, medical personnel. Even Peyton Royce had that. She literally, you look like she dropped character and was legit concerned, on her knees trying to help. And Billie Kay walked out on her own power with the crowd. For her being a heel, the crowd was applauding her. I mean, she's holding her neck the whole time. She might have ended up with a bad, whiplash or wrenching or a stinger. But it's not good, and I don't think Ember Moon's going to get to use that move much longer. But William Regal announced NXT TakeOver will be Asuka versus Ember Moon.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which is going to be a great match. And I think Ember Moon might be the one to topple Asuka. But which would be great because, like I mentioned a couple weeks back, Asuka's been filling in for Naomi in the 6-woman tag matches. And then the main event, which was a phenomenal match, and it was a great way to test Shinsuke on his knee injury. They had him in the main event against T.J. Perkins. And if you want to see a great match, that's a match to watch because TJ's got that knee bar.
You know what? I'm just going to go back and watch the NXT show on the network, and I'm not going to worry about watching the highlights.
Yeah, no, you definitely got to watch the show. This is why I follow it, man. It's less of the storyline bullshit, and it's more of the in-ring wrestling.
But I've always liked it myself. There's always been some good stuff out there for sure, no doubt.
Exactly. Now, speaking of Naomi, that'll lead us right into SmackDown.
Well, now with SmackDown, I want to get your opinion because I know you have the same thoughts on this person that I do. You said before, and we're talking about people doing some things, that might get them in trouble or something, or doing for their own benefit and stuff. Word is that The Miz has a lot of heat going on him right now backstage, and with some of the higher ups because he's abandoned script on 3 different occasions. And
because he thinks that he can do what CM Punk and John Cena do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's thinking to himself right now, he's one of your top, heels for as far as the guys go. He brings a lot of heat. He's probably thinking, why don't I get a little bit of creative control here? Because let's face it, he is the Miz is, excuse the rhyme and the thing, but he's a whiz on the mic. He comes out there and he's gold on the microphone. whether he's on Talking Smack afterwards or whatever the case may be. But he's gone off script and talked about
at least a handful of times.
Oh yeah, well at least 3 for sure. They said for sure, but they mentioned one time it was talking about when he was feuding with Ambrose about him and Renee Young, and said that he was supposed to say they were dating. He said they were sleeping together.
Yeah, and that's when Renee Young slapped him, because even the look on her face was like, because you knew that came to a shock to her. She did not see that coming, and that's
so
just
you wonder,
like
was that
Talking Smack.
So was that a legit smack to him? You wonder then when he said that? Did she legitimately smack him?
Because she even said backstage, flat out, "I don't have words." There's one thing to say something that's meant to be said, and there's another. There's one thing you don't do, and that's cross the line. And to me, he crossed the line, and that's what he basically said in different words. But you knew what she was getting at.
But no, this is gonna drive people more crazy here soon, because the last thing he's come out was a comment made about Cena and Nikki Bella.
Oh, it's not
a comment
just
about
that. John Cena is stealing people's gimmicks. Stealing the Death Valley Driver, which, oh wait, that was Tommy Dreamer's move.
But hold on now, was that off script right there when he did that part?
I believe that was off script, because then he said he steals Dolph Ziggler's girlfriend.
Yes.
And then he said something about Daniel Bryan
I kind of laughed about that, though. I did. I kind of laughed at that part. But you know what? Before it was Tommy Dreamer's Death Valley Driver, wasn't Perry Saturn doing it too?
No, Dreamer started. Oh, and that was the other thing. He stole Marky Mark's look.
Yeah, and he said Marky Mark and every other confused white teenage boy or something like that. And then what he said?
Something like that.
So I was thinking,
the one thing that I think shut him up, he said something to Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan said, "They don't want me to wrestle. I'm not allowed to wrestle." Or no, what was it? Sorry, I can't, or they won't let me.
Exactly.
Let's see in a year to a year and a half. And as the show went off the air, you heard Renee Young saying, it was a low voice, and I don't think it was meant to be heard, "What was that all about?" And Daniel Bryan said, "I can't get into that right now." And if you remember correctly, there were, yes, and if you remember correctly, once again, Daniel Bryan gives how many fucks? 0.
0.
He's come to the point. 0 fucks. I swear I'm going to start a Daniel Bryan how many fucks counter does he give every week now, because he's still at 0. Okay, but every doctor has cleared him except for one. Now, does that mean his contract is officially up at that time, or they want to give him that time frame? Because he's already got in his mind the moves and the wrestling style that he can do that is safer for him as well as everybody else. He's been training differently. So, again, Is it they're going to clear him around that time if everything's all right, they want to let everything subside, or is it his contract's up and he's going to go maybe back to Ring of Honor or maybe New Japan?
I would love to see him. If he dropped to a Ring of Honor, that would be like an insult to WWE, and I would be really into that, because he's showing them, I'm not about it for your money, I'm about it for this wrestling, and they got a good company there, and I'm going to go, and play with the guys there for a while.
Right, but are they going to suffice it being as Birdie? Yes, Birdie. They've already announced that the daughter's name is going to be Birdie, which leads in a lot of controversy, because the Bellas have created a lingerie company called Bella Bee. Birdie Bee. So their daughter is named after lingerie, which is weird. But no, it's like you said, it's a big fuck you to the WWE. I don't need your money. I do it for the love. I do it for the passion. And
I would like to see a lot more
on his character.
I would love to see so many more do that. And it's like Mike said, some of the guys will stay backstage and take the higher pay to not get on camera and just take the money, because he's paying them a little extra money to not go somewhere else, because he knows somewhere else they'll go and they'll shine. But he can't use them right now. Maybe he can use them later. But it's like Curtis Axel. I've said 100 times over. Curtis Axel could go to TNA or Ring of Honor 1, and he could shine if he wanted to.
Well,
he's that good.
Would Daniel Bryan go to TNA?
I don't see no reason why not. Some of the other guys have done it in the past. You've seen WCW guys jumping ship to TNA whenever they got bought out by WWF. WWE. They didn't go there. They went there instead and had a good career while they were there as well. Sting was there, had a good run while he was there. Some of the older guys that had been
showed up.
there. Right.
Look how many guys said they were going to retire and then showed up in TNA. And
Flair showed up there.
Mick Foley, another one. He fought, I think it was Samoa Joe. I don't remember.
I don't remember. Or was it Abyss?
You know what? I don't know.
I can't remember.
But he showed up, and I think he had a world title match.
I tell you what I got a problem with right now. I have a problem with SmackDown and something they've done that has altered 2 WrestleMania matches already.
The AJ Styles?
That's one of them. We fully expected, at the rate it was going, they've been talking for months about AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, but we were hoping against hope that they wouldn't do it. And with AJ getting that chance at that Battle Royal and then fighting Luke Harper and winning, getting the title shot at Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and then have Randy Orton come back saying, nope, changed my mind. I want it. I'm going to do it. I want it. And I'm sure this is probably how it's all written out. I'm not trying to say, that they don't know what they're doing with it. I'm sure they got a good plan for down the road here. I don't want to see AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, and I just keep seeing it go further and further that direction. I would just as well rather see a triple threat match between Styles, Orton, and Wyatt at that point. And we still got time to build up to that. They can still do it.
That really doesn't settle the feud though between Bray and Orton if you throw a third man in. And I don't know if you.
I know. I mean, it doesn't. But I mean, I guess I'm holding on to the whole AJ Styles bit. I like AJ Styles. I'm glad he got there, made a bigger name for himself than what he. I'm glad he came back and showed them. You had me once before, and you let me go. You lost out, and now this is what I can do, and he's doing it. And I guess I wanted to see him do it a little bit longer. But now we do. You're right. We need closure on the feud. We do, but they can still carry it well beyond WrestleMania.
Right, but things also seem to pick up in the recent weeks in terms of AJ have a problem with authority, and it showed it on Talking Smack when they showed what happened after the match, and AJ came through that gorilla and got in Shane's face, like to the point that the Road Dogg actually had to stand up and you haven't seen the Road Dogg in how long? For him, and you see Michael Cole back there, and you start seeing Jamie Noble, and you start seeing Michael Hayes. You start seeing these guys getting involved. You're like, yo, y'all need to break it the hell up, like step back. And then you see Michael Cole in the background, like a scared little bitch, hiding there, like But it's lead. I think it could have the potential to have something good, but it's a matter of I hope they let AJ go over and they don't let Shane go over.
I'm not a fan of the McMahons, either one, putting themselves in big matches. And it started with Vince doing it with Stone Cold and stuff. And
right, but the one thing you do know with Shane is Shane will put his body on the line. Shane, once again, like Daniel Bryan, gives zero fucks.
He will, but, I mean, did he look good to you at all the last 2 pay-per-views? Right, but did he look good to you at all the last couple of pay-per-views he was in, really? He did that. I mean, let's face it, with The Undertaker in the what Mike refers to as the Heck in a Cell match, because it's no longer a Hell in a Cell the way they fight him. He hit that one big thing coming off the top of the cage through that table, and that was like the oh my God moment of the night. I give him credit for it. He does put his body on the line. But when he come to the Survivor Series, he did not look good in that match whatsoever. None. And I think that
and it's
I think, yeah, and did it go? He got hurt, or he legitimately hurt somebody else in the thing?
He got hurt. He got knocked for a loop, getting hit with that spear.
Oh, that's what it was, coming off the top rope.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was. He hasn't looked that great, and unless he's done some really working out and putting some time into it, and he thinks he can give us something. But to me, it's an insult to AJ Styles, because he's gone against all the top people across the world, and now you're going to tell me the boss's son can step in and do something better than what all these other people have done? I just don't. I don't like it.
Yeah, but me personally, I would kind of think it's kind of an honor to an extent, because of the fact of, like I said, everybody that has watched Shane has fallen off the height of the top of the Titantron. Shane has let Angle. I mean, that match at King of the Ring against Kurt Angle, when Angle went to overhead suplex him through that glass and it didn't break the first time, I watched the interview with two, and Shane said, do it again and do it harder. It needs to, I want this thing, I want to go through it. And Angle was pretty much like, are you sure? And he said, fucking put me through it. And Angle put everything he had into throwing Shane through that glass. Shane will do whatever it takes to put on a match. And knowing that, I think that's an honor in an aspect of knowing that this guy's not going to step down. This guy's not going to want you to take it easy on him. He's going to want you to do whatever it takes to put on one hell of a match.
As long as they don't put him over Styles. You can't do that. As long as they don't do that.
If they give Styles the win, I'll be happy with the match in general, because I know it's not going to be the greatest match on the card, but it's going to be something everybody's going to want to watch because AJ Styles is involved. Shane stepping in the ring again, because there hasn't been a match where Shane stepped in the ring that I haven't watched because I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. But as long as Styles goes over.
Exactly. And then the other one I got a problem with here is the women's match. I would just as soon see a solid one-on-one match between Alexa Bliss and Natalya, Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. I do not want to see Alexa Bliss versus
anybody but everybody.
I mean, yeah, the entire female roster. Now is it like, I don't get it. Is it like all at once, like a 9-way battle match, 8-way battle match? Any one person get pinned in the ring?
Well, let's look at this one. You got Alexa Bliss, you got Mickie James, you got Becky Lynch, you got Carmella, you got Natalya. That's 5 right there. Okay.
Okay, we know Nikki Bella's not going to be in it because of her tag match.
Right. And so I'm thinking a championship scramble match, basically, but that leaves the doors open because what did Daniel Bryan say? Every woman available on the roster.
What if they bring Asuka?
To make room. Asuka would be after Mania, so I don't think that's the case. I think that this is the aspect. I think it's because they're leaving the door open in case Naomi is cleared for Mania. Naomi shows up at Mania, cleared and ready to wrestle, puts the shock factor in there like, oh shit, she's back, and she wins the belt back that she had to reluctantly give up, and wins it in her hometown with her family watching.
I guess it's no different than watching. I shouldn't complain. I guess it's no different than watching one of those 7-man intercontinental title matches where you climb the ladder to get the intercontinental title. And when they've had several of those.
That's always destruction.
Right, they've had several of those. I guess it's no worse than that technically. It's just that I would love to see just a legit match where either Natalya has a chance to get one-on-one against Alexa Bliss and gets her shot at it, or they go ahead and put Mickie James against Alexa Bliss and split that little tag team deal they got going up there against other people and split them up apart from each other. I mean, I'd want to see just a one-on-one.
But it's right, especially since we already have a multi-girl match going on. But it still falls into this aspect of, they're not going to take a title off a heel and put it on a heel. They're going to have a transition somewhere. It's always been face heel, face heel, face heel. I can't recall the last time a heel took it off of a heel or a face took it off of a face.
Well, but then the heel turned around and beat the heel up this past week. When she left the ring, she put that kick on her and left her laying in the ring and walked out. So how do you play off of that at the end? I mean, it's kind of weird. It's almost like the women's division. There's no real friends right now. It's just a big free-for-all with everybody. And I think that's what they were trying to establish in the ring the other day.
Right, but it's come to the point that division is so all over the place, and that leads me into the tag division. The tag division is so all over the place. They did a great thing by turning, the Usos heel. They needed it, and it's working for them. But it's just they don't know what to do with it, and there's just no word as to, because they're not going to leave, the SmackDown titles off of WrestleMania, whether it's pre-show or it's the main show. They're not going to leave it off there. So what direction do they go? They've been leading towards the Usos, but then, you've got guys at the Ascension have been getting these shots. So is it that the Ascension's going to end up in there? Like, nobody even knows.
I mean, they could still turn this tag team thing around and make something viable out of it if they quit making some of these tag teams look stupid. Quit making Ascension look stupid. Make them look the way they were in NXT. Make them a little bit not dominant, but make them look stronger than what they've been making them look. Leave the Usos heel. Have the Usos win the belts for a little bit. Definitely have them feuding with American Alpha, or go ahead and let's say that was American Alpha's run. Leave them in there. Have American Alpha feuding with somebody different. Go ahead and bring up one of the other tag teams over there. If you're not going to bring up, the ones we talked about earlier to Raw, go ahead and bring up DIY or something to the SmackDown, or go ahead and bring up the Authors of Pain.
Right. Well, the problem is the Authors of Pain. They're the tag champs right now. They just won them at TakeOver San Antonio, so they're not going to bring them up that quick. Although I've seen stranger happen.
Right.
But it's the aspect that now that the tag division down there is faltering, because you've got 3 tag teams down there. Well, 4 if you count Sanity, but you've got 3 to 4 tag teams down there because you've got TM61, one of the guys on the shelf for probably about 7 more months.
Well, see, that's why I've been preaching like crazy for the last few weeks that they need to go ahead and start recruiting from the indie circuit. Start bringing some of these top guys on up. There's a lot of big names out there on the indie circuit that could go there and make a showing for them and do well. I mean, they could take some of these guys and put 2 together for a tag team if they want to make a tag team to bring in. Or they could just find a tag team that's already out there that's established on the indie circuit and bring them on in. I don't know who that might be if they're looking for a powerhouse team. I mean, I've seen there is one popular team out there that a lot of people talk about, the Ugly Ducklings. One of my friends, Tony Norman, put me out there onto them. I got to see them on YouTube a couple times now, and they're entertaining to watch. They're kind of the size of like the Young Bucks are in a way as far as how their build is. So they're not a powerhouse team, but they do make an entertaining match, though, for the fans to watch. You've got the guy we had on the show formerly here. He called himself Mr. 500. He broke the PWI's top 500 list at number 500, but still, that's a top honor to be in the top 500 of all the thousands of people who do wrestling out there in the indie circuit and everything in the pros. To break that point is an honor, and that's Timmy Lee Retton. Timmy Lou can step up and be, TNA, Ring of Honor, wherever, NXT, and show out there, along with Jason Kincaid. He's another one that's out there that can show out. There's so many people out there right now.
Even a guy that we know of, Zachy Taylor.
Say again?
Zachy Taylor. And the Wolfhouse. Yes, he's one of the guys that run around in the promo world. He wrestles down in Florida. He's got they call it the Madhouse. He's a champion down there.
If it's one of the guys in the promo world, I don't really keep up with the promo thing too much here. To be honest with you, I did Mike Currents a favor this past weekend with something, but I don't really keep up with or participate in that. We've been talking about having
his stuff.
Yeah, we've been talking about having a show with that here soon. Actually, just a little special sideshow like Robin Ray did. Quite possible we'll do that one day soon. I don't know, but I had heard there's been some former guys who actually wrestled come on there and cut some promos and those things as well. Trevor Murdoch was one that's done a couple of them.
As a matter of fact, X-Pac did one with me.
Yeah, you mentioned X-Pac on that. That you did mention that with him, and so that wouldn't surprise me about this guy. There's just so many people out there that could be out there making a name for themselves. Damian Wayne, have you seen Damian Wayne wrestle?
I've heard of him.
He showed up at different places all around the states and everything. I don't think he's set for any one place. He was in the He was the NWA National Heavyweight Champion here recently and lost the belt. Not the World Heavyweight Champion for NWA, but just the National Heavyweight Champion. Still a big title to hold, though, for NWA, as historic as the company is. And he is one of the last guys out there that I can think of on the indie circuit that is a very convincing heel. But the fans cheer him, though. He's like the anti-hero kind of guy, like Stone Cold was, giving it to the boss every week. He's what the fans think of him as, I guess.
Here comes the problem, though. When you bring in these guys, are they the caliber of NXT, or do you bring them up to the main roster? Like, for example, say they get a hold of the Young Bucks. Say they get a hold of the Briscoes. say they get hold of, any of the names that people know in the indie world that are great tag teams, are they going to send them down to NXT first, knowing that they've held gold all around the world?
Depends on how that person handles
the main roster.
Depends on how that person handles it, I think. In my opinion, Samoa Joe didn't have to go to the NXT. He was already main roster ready. But he went to NXT first because NXT is a hotbed. He knows it. It's a big place to be at. People are loving it. So he wanted to go there. AJ Styles come in, shows up at the Rumble. He's straight to Raw. He didn't go to NXT. I'm not saying he didn't want to or he turned it down, but I'm just saying he was there. So I don't know.
You get guys like Bobby Roode and Eric Young and Shinsuke Nakamura that all show up in NXT.
Right. It could also have something to do with the timing, too, though. The timing of what you've got on the roster versus what you need on the other rosters. Like, you could have it to point to where when Bobby Roode came in, they were needing somebody else at the NXT level to help fill out their roster at that point. They done brought some other people,
like you say. It's such a hot thing going right now. It's essentially become its own promotion.
Right, and it's like people want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of that history that I was in NXT for a minute. I was here. I did this as it was coming up, and it's another accolade. There. Right.
So it's just another accolade. Like now Bobby Roode can add to his resume, NXT champion. Samoa Joe can add to his accolade, NXT champion. Same thing with Sami Zayn. Same thing with Kevin Owens. Same thing with
Nakamura, Owens, Rollins.
Nakamura. Right. All of those guys that were, these big indie names or have been in other televised promotions that have had the gold, well, now this is just another one of those things that they can add to. Yeah, I've been the NXT champion.
I tell you what, later on when you get a chance, not necessarily tonight because I know it'll be late when we get done with the show and everything, but when you get a chance, look up some of those names I mentioned to you on YouTube and catch some of their stuff out there. I mean, I'm not saying that they are Raw ready or SmackDown Live ready, but I'm saying they've got
they're ready talent. They're ready for the rest of the world to see them.
Exactly, they've got that talent. I mean, you've got to get them out there to that point. Bring them to NXT and let them put on a show for you. Not necessarily on the taping or anything. I'm saying have them come in audition for you. Have a match with some of your guys like DIY or the Revival or something. If you're talking about the Ugly Ducklings or something, see if they can put on a show for you. And if you're interested in what they've got to offer for the show that they do, they got some pretty nice moves out there. They had a match against Timmy Lee Retton and a guy they call White Mike. They call themselves the Gym Nasty Boys, which is kind of funny. It's a play on the Nasty Boys, of course, with the way the outfits look. But Timmy Lee Retton's supposed to be like a gymnast himself as well. And they had some nice-looking moves out there that were tag team-like moves that you would see where it took both of them to make it happen. And it was just interesting and fun to watch. Now, as far as the solo kind of thing goes, Timmy Lee Retton's good on the solo thing. Jason Kincaid, he's a fun one to watch. Damian Wayne's a fun one to watch. I haven't seen him yet, but I heard Matt Tremont, or it's either Tremont or Tremont. I forget how they say his last name.
Tremont. I think
Tremont,
I know
you know what I'm talking about?
You'll definitely have to send me a list of these names, though, so I could check them out. You know what I mean?
I will do that. You check them out and see what you think about them for sure. And tell me what you think as far as the potential. They all might not necessarily be ready for live TV kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But they've got that potential. If you put somebody with them to get them comfortable in the new feel of the new area, like NXT is going to be different than CZW. You know what I mean? It's going to be a different feel when you're there because so many big people have already come through NXT now, and there's been some names come through CZW as well, just like there has been SICW.
Prime example coming through CZW, Dean Ambrose, which actually I wanted to touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Baron Corbin.
Oh my gosh!
Is he legit injured? Like,
I don't know.
You looked at Renee Young, and I don't think that was. I don't think that was a scripted look on her face. When I think that was a legit look of concern on her face during Talking Smack.
He hit him pretty hard with that thing, he hit him pretty hard with it, and then he puts the forklift down on top of him. That's a lot of pressure. I'm sure it stopped just before it got down on him really well. But I mean, if he didn't do that right with the forklift, and it went down too far with those forks, that's a lot of pressure being exerted on him.
I used to run a forklift back in the day, and there's a lot of force behind them.
There is. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't run one, but I've seen them run in plenty of places, and they seem to me like when those forks come down, you hear the force it hits with when they take them on down full force and don't slow them down.
Oh, you can hear them crushing stones under them when you're resting it.
Yes. I mean, they can, if that wasn't handled properly, he could have hurt him in that process. Maybe not on purpose either. But you know, I tell you, if he is legit okay, everything come out all right at the end. They had their match at WrestleMania. I kind of had the feeling that this is going to happen, and I hope it don't, because I want to see Baron Corbin get that title at WrestleMania. They seem to be building up Baron Corbin real strong on TV.
You know what? Finally, somebody that agrees with me, because Chuck, what's he call him? Baron Cardboard?
Cardboard, yes. He does not like him at all. He cannot stand him.
Which,
me
by
and
the way,
Mike
I had
and Chuck
the pleasure of
agree
seeing
with
Chuck
everything.
this weekend.
Huh?
Which, by the way, I had the pleasure of seeing Chuck this weekend.
I'm sorry, I do apologize. I mean, that's great. That's awesome.
He's a little furrier in person than I thought he would be.
So he's a little gremlin that was shaved down and taught to speak.
He's a good guy, though. I like him.
What?
Nice guy.
Hey, look, I'm sorry. I got to have my fun with Chuck right now. If you didn't hear their Chris Benoit story that they put out there, their Chris Benoit show, boy, they razzed me to death at the end of that show. I told them, I even called in with a few minutes ago. I said, well, look, I had to call in and save the show. You guys ran out of material 15 minutes ago. All y'all got are Chris jokes right now. I had to step in for a second, but they razzed me to death. I mean, they were talking about, Mike goes, did you see Chris with his Sasha Banks sunglasses on? Because I was joking around with Mike. I got to the first Wrestle Crate. My wife picked it up for me.
I get them religiously as well, and I definitely like the Seth Rollins shirt I got this month.
Well, see, I don't get Wrestle Crate. Usually, she got me this first one. It was at a place called FYE they got down here, and she picked it up for me.
I get it bi-monthly.
So I got the whole Sasha Banks. So I put the Sasha Banks glasses on. All right. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen me without my hat on before. I have no hair on top of my head whatsoever. Right. I got what my wife refers to as the cul-de-sac haircut up there. You know, it cuts in, it goes circles around the top, comes back around. But Mike said me and Sasha Banks were going to form a tag team. It was called Forehead and Morehead. I was like, oh, that's great.
Jesus.
That's lovely. Thanks a lot, Mike. Now, you know what? I'm not going to razz on Mike, though. Mike's had a rough day today. He's sick. Mike, if you listen to us, I do hope you feel better later, man.
Mike, yes, Mike, definitely hope you feel better, brother.
If you haven't talked to him, I'll let you find out from him. I'm not going to put his news out on the airwaves like that. Chuck, on the other hand, I'm going to razz him to death now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad y'all had to hook up and meet like that at what was it, the MonsterCon?
Monster Mania convention, yes.
Monster Mania.
Monster Mania. They actually had 5 wrestlers there. They had Lita, they had Nikolai Volkov, which I didn't get a chance to speak to him. Tully Blanchard, J.J. Dillon, and Barry Windham. Ric Flair was supposed to be there, but they actually he was double booked, and the other one took precedence because it was booked before the Monster Mania. But I sat down, I talked to J.J. Dillon, and we got talking, and come to find out, and this is very interesting, is that Arn Anderson's career was cut short because Arn Anderson actually wanted to be there this weekend, but they were in Toronto, and with the whole passport thing back and forth, it would have just been too much, so we couldn't make it. But Arn's career was cut short by 5 to 10 years because he was a workhorse. I mean, he was one of the hardest workers there were. Whether he was injured or not, he still wanted to work. And it got to the point that he had that neck injury, which, that's why he retired. But it started going with tingling down his arm, and then it started turning into numbness. And it was said to me by J.J. Dillon that if Arn Anderson would have caught that sooner, and they would have been able to fix it and to do the surgery and everything, he could have ended up coming in the WWE when, WCW got bought out, and we would have seen the 4 Horsemen in the WWE. We would have seen
that would have been
Rick,
something.
Arn, Benoit, and Malenko.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he would have retired a couple of years ago. Well, maybe about 10 years ago he would have retired, but that's still later than what he returned as, you know. And it would have been a second coming for Arn Anderson in the WWE. And
look, I got one more thing.
I think it could have changed the landscape of the 2000 era that we knew.
They could have very well. I always want to see Arn Anderson as a champion, to be honest with you, a world heavyweight champion, at least once. And we never got to see that. But I got one thing. We got about 4 minutes and 25 seconds left here. Real quick, let me get your take on the Orton and AJ Styles match from Tuesday.
That was, for their first meeting ever, I think it was great. And a little thing that I found out, Orton did not know that fake out was coming. That all came mid-match, mid-move in AJ's mind because he wanted to add something to it. So when Orton missed that RKO, that was AJ's doing. That wasn't planned. But it turned out to be, I think, for what it was worth for the first encounter ever between the two, I thought it was great. My only thing is, I've seen how Randy got up after that. I'm hoping he didn't injure his knee.
Oh, surely not. I hope not. I'd like to go ahead and see them get a close with him and Bray Wyatt on there. I don't know if they'll close it with Randy Orton winning the belt from him or not, but I would like to see them go ahead and get their thing to an end. I'm not a big fan of Orton and Wyatt as a feud. I never have been, really, to be honest with you. They're both methodical in the ring. They're similar in how they do their ring psychology and stuff, but it's not something with the two of them that I'd like to see. Just like I don't want to see John Cena versus Orton no more either. We've seen enough of those in the past. I'm just not a huge Randy Orton fan all around. I do like him. I respect his way in the ring and everything, and I don't have anything against him. But when it comes to the rest of the roster, I'm just, there's other people I would rather watch over Randy Orton, I guess, is the way I look at it.
I think it's the veteran syndrome that he's been in that main event position more than he should have been.
I guess it could be. He's been around forever. He was a real young kid coming in. I mean, so we've seen a lot of him over the years. It's almost like you've seen someone for too long.
Right.
And unless you're a small organization like some of the territories were back in the day, you don't like seeing the same person in the same spot for too long at a time all the years. Like in Memphis, you got away with it with Jerry Lawler being the spotlight of everything in Memphis. It was either him or Bill Dundee. They're the two mainstays. And usually Lawler was the main guy to stay. And it was okay because it's a small organization, small promotion, and people like their hero. They got a hero they like. Just like Flair. Flair was the anti-hero, but the hero. They wanted to see him have the title. They loved seeing Ric Flair with the title, like seeing Ric Flair talk. They love seeing Dusty chase him. But, it's like that. But in this one, this has been such a big thing for so long, you get tired of seeing the same thing with Randy Orton all the time. So
I think it just comes down to the fact that, Wyatt and Orton were supposed to have that match, and it didn't actually happen.
I know.
You know what I mean? And everybody was psyched up like, oh, God, it's Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton. This is going, because, like you said, the ring psychology. And it's one of those things that they are both so methodical in that ring that it's just like seeing Triple H and The Undertaker, the ring psychology.
Yeah. Well, we're down to about a minute and 15 here, Ray. We gotta go ahead and start wrapping up, unfortunately here. We'll pick back up on this on next week if you want to call in again next week. Of course, we'll pick up on this.
Definitely.
We'll talk more about this as well, the build up to WrestleMania. But with a minute left, I'm gonna go ahead and start closing things up here and just let everybody know. Make sure you do go ahead and follow us at YouTube, where we keep all of our podcasts, at old and new. Check out all of our old interviews we get up there. We got some more interviews coming on the way here with some people from the indie areas and beyond, hopefully. If I can get some people that are not quite in the mainstay of camera these days, but kind of retired and out of the business some, I'm trying to get some of them as well. We'll see how that goes. Follow us on Twitter and at BodySlamTheComp, and we are at Facebook and Instagram, BodySlamTheCompetition.com. Next week, Mike and Chuck should both be back with us. I'm assuming, depending on how everybody is doing and feeling. I think Chuck was just tired and worn out from his big weekend he had, and Mike's just not feeling well, but they will be back. So with 10 seconds left, I will see you guys next week. Ray, thanks for filling in tonight. I really appreciate it. you coming on.
Hey, anytime,
and
man.
stepping in the whole show with us. So we look forward to talking to you again here soon. So until next week, everybody, y'all have a good night.
Have a good one, guys.